الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الأطيبين الأنجبين بهم نتولى ومن أعدائهم نتبرأ إلى الله. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توغا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Ayah number 9 from Surat Maryam. قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين وقد خلقتك من قبل ولم تك شيئا. It means, قال means he said. So shall it be, your Lord has said. It is easy for me, it is simpler for me. Certainly I created you before when you were nothing. قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين. That is easy for me. And the next ayah, قال رب اجعل لي آية. He says that God, show me a sign. رب اجعل لي آية. قال آيتك ألا تكلم الناس ثلاث ليال سويا. The sign is that you don't speak to the people for 3 complete nights. Now, the story of Prophet Zakaria Salamullah alayhi, when he sees the beauty of Maryam, the ranks that she has arrived at, that desire of having a child triggers in Hazrat Zakaria, that if a child can be that wonderful at this very young age, 6-7 years old, and for her tables are being sent from the skies and she is occupied in worship. So if a child can be that beautiful and that wonderful, God, I also want to have a child. In his old age, in his late 70s, and then he says that God, my wife also, she is barren. But then Allah in reply says, قَالَ كَذَلِكَ قَالَ رَبُّكَ هُوَ عَلَيَّ هَيِّنٌ. That is easy upon me. وَقَدْ خَلَقْتُكَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. I created you from nothing. Now this one, the creations, everyone, the components, they're all present before me. I just have to bring someone else into existence. So this is easy. Now that what he says that just like I created you from nothing, and then I can do this also, resurrect and make and bring forth for you a child. So there are quite a few points that we learn from this beautiful ayah. First of all, God has the might on everything and on everything. God, for him, everything is easy. As he mentioned in this ayah where he says, Huwa alayya hayyinun, that is easy upon me. In Quran on 2 other occasions, in Surat al-Hadid and Surat Taghabun. Surat al-Hadid, the Almighty, he says, Ma asaba min musibatin fil ard wala fi anfusikum illa fi kitab min qabli an nabra'aha inna dhalika ala Allahi yasir. So, inna dhalika ala Allahi yasir, that is easy upon God. That is easy. Says, no afflictions they visit you, but everything has been written in the book. Everything has already been written, what is going to happen. So for Allah, that is easy. Now when we talk about the might of Allah, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, the qudrat of Allah, this might, whatever He wants, He can do. But there are places where He would not do, that contradict His wisdom. Like for example, if you say that He creates a creature as big as this entire planet Earth, and that creature consumes all the provisions and food that is present on the planet Earth, that one creature he consumes all of that. That what 7 billion people are consuming, he does it on one. So Allah will not do anything like that, because that is something which is unwise. Sometimes people come and say that, is it possible that something be black and white at the same time? It's either black or white. It can't be the two at the same time, hot and cold, either hot or cold. So wisdom of Allah, hikmat of Allah has always to be taken care in all of these issues, that He, the Almighty, although He has might over everything, but He will never do anything which is unwise. Example of unwise, that it's something He brings into existence where everyone else suffers, everyone else is going to be in problems. That will not, He will not do that. He won't create any creature that is drinking all the waters of the earth and everyone else has to die of thirst. So that is against the wisdom of God. So whatever falls within the might of Allah, He says that inna dhalika ala Allahi yasir, that is very easy upon Allah. Elsewhere in Surat Taghabun also has a similar ayah that says that وَذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرٌ, that all of that, it is easy upon Allah. Or elsewhere in another surah, Surah Al-Kahf, He says that وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ مُقْتَدِرًا, and Allah has power over all things, so He has the might. The adab that is taught to us, that sometimes in a tragedy, in a mishap, or someone passes away, a loved one, there you are hit and hurt, you say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-aliy al-azim. That is, there is no might, there is no movement, but that from Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. So these recitals and azkar and such remembrances at the right time, they give us hope and tranquility. Alright, so among the points that we learn from this ayah is that قَالَ رَبِّ اجْعَلْ لِي آيَةً. Hazrat Zakaria, he says to Allah, God, show me a sign. Now that I'm going to be blessed with a child, show me a sign. قَالَ آيَتُكَ أَلَّا تُكَلِّمَ النَّاسَ ثَلَاثَ أَيَّامٍ إِلَّا رَمْزًا. Now this is from Surat Al-Imran. The Almighty says that you will not speak to people for 3 days. ثَلَاثَةَ أَيَّامٍ. Yawm in Arabic means day. Ayyam means it's the plural of days. So here in this ayah, when the Prophet he inquires, Allah says, you will not speak to people thalathata ayyam, 3 days. And here in this ayah that we just recited, it said that thalatha layalin sawiya. Layl is night, layal it's nights. So for 3 nights. So there in the other surah says 3 days. In this surah says 3 nights. Now, at times in Arabic, night means day and night. So you will be using the term night, but it means day and night. For example, قَالَ رَبِّ اجْعَلْ لِي آيَةً قَالَ آيَتُكَ أَلَّا تُكَلِّمَ النَّاسَ ثَلَاثَةَ أَيَّامٍ إِلَّا رَمْزًا. So here, ثَلَاثَةَ أَيَّامٍ has been mentioned, and then for both the day and night, and here also layal also applies to both day and night. At times night and day are mentioned in place of each other. So wants to mention night, day is mentioned, wants to mention day, night is mentioned. Tabari and Majma al-Bayan and Tafsir al-Mizan, all of them, they say that Hazrat Zakaria, his tongue opened and unlocked only when he wanted to recite the ayat. And when speaking to people, it used to lock, he couldn't speak. So his tongue opened, his mouth opened, or his tongue spoke only when the signs and ayat of God were to be recited. Now, to differentiate between haqq and batil, Hazrat Zakaria, he sought help from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, that God differentiate wahi and these satanic illusions you tell me which one is which. Now the messages that we get from this ayah is that all these natural laws, they do not restrict or reduce the might of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Maybe a person has become old and the wife is also barren. So biologically he can't, biologically she can't. So by nature both of them, they are not able to carry and bear a child. So here in this surah says that biological or natural laws, they do not restrict or reduce the Almighty's might. Where He says, Huwa alayya hayyanun, that is easy upon me. Now in the creation at large, all doubts that may come to your mind are all negated and removed. How? He says that when Prophet Zakaria said, show me a sign. Allah says, khalaqtuka walam takun shay'a. That is, I created you. You did not even exist. I created you. So the doubts in my mind that may be there, they are all removed now. So if God can create me first, now bringing a third person from two people already present, that is easy. But for the might of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, there is no restriction, there are no no hiccups. When He wants something to happen, He makes it happen. Now one of the other things that we learn from this ayah is that Anbiya, they are always after ascending to higher ranks of yaqeen. Like for example, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he wanted to inquire about how this resurrection, that Allah will resurrect people after being dead and decomposed, how Allah will resurrect them. He goes and asks Allah that, God, show me this ayah. How is that possible that a person has passed away? Now in a war, for example, with so many cuts and wounds on him, and in a bad shape he dies. But then Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, when He wants to give him life, He says that's easy. And also Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he says that, God, I want to get to that yaqeen, to that certainty, that how come someone who has passed away, has decomposed, how will he be brought back to life? Allah says, don't you believe me, Ibrahim? He says, I do believe you. لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي, so that my heart, it is further satisfied. لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. Now here when we look into the seerah of Amirul Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam, Imam says that now Prophet Ibrahim here says that if I was shown how this resurrection takes place, I will get to that yaqeen. Allah says, okay, get 4 birds, slaughter them, mix them, the meat of all of them together, all 4 birds, and place them in a tray on 4 different spots. And Prophet Ibrahim does it. And Allah says, now call the birds. When He calls the birds, all those 4 birds who had died and whose body and flesh and blood was mixed and then thrown to 4 different mountains, was resurrected by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Now here when Allah says to Prophet Ibrahim that, do you not believe in me? He says, لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي, for my satisfaction of my heart, of my soul. Amirul Mu'mineen says that I have come to a point, I have reached a rank that no matter what is shown to me, no matter how many veils are removed from the skies, not a portion, not a pin drop would increase in my yaqeen that I have. I have no doubts whatsoever. That is that height of yaqeen Amirul Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam, he has. Now Anbiya, they were always after ascending, after takamul, which is also our motto. We also have to work on that always we have to go towards takamul. Now for that takamul also, at times you need to get to that yaqeen. To get to that yaqeen, you say to God that, God, show me some signs. And also every movement of ours is the intention of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. If He does not intend with health and with all the well-being that I may be having, if He does not intend that I should speak, I will never be able to speak. And no matter how much of a treatment and medication and medical is done, when He doesn't intend, He doesn't want me to speak, I will not be able to speak. So every moment of ours is by the command and the intention of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, and if He does not intend, with everything that I have, I may not even be able to speak. Now the next ayah that we have here, it says فَخَرَجَ عَلَى قَوْمِهِ مِنَ الْمِحْرَابِ فَأَوْحَى إِلَيْهِمْ أَنْ سَبِّحُوا بُكْرَةً وَعَشِيًّا. That is, he emerged before his people from the temple and signaled to them that they should glorify Allah morning and evening. فَخَرَجَ عَلَى قَوْمِهِ مِنَ الْمِحْرَابِ. He came towards people, came out from the mihrab and then went towards his people and said that Wahy has been revealed unto them, and sabbihu bukratan wa ashiyya, that they glorify morning and evening. Now bukratan is from fajr to sunrise. Bukratan wa ashiyya has been mentioned quite a lot in Quran. Ashiyya, it's either from zuhr to sunset or towards the end of the day. It's called ashiyya, bukratan wa ashiyya. Now keep this in mind. When you go to Mecca and Medina, these Wahhabi lot, they don't let you offer prayers or even recite any kind of a zikr before Maghrib. They say it's makruh, and we don't allow you to do that makruh. They are happy to beat you up, do that haram, but not happy for you to do a makruh which is baseless. Bukratan, it's from the fajr to sunrise. Ashiyya means either it's zohr to sunset or the end part of the day. So Quran here clearly says that ansabbihuhu bukratan wa ashiyya, that you Lord, you praise and you glorify your Lord bukratan wa ashiyya, morning and night. So at all times you have to be in His service, in the service of the Almighty Allah. So that was ashiyya and bukratan. Mihrab. فَخَرَجَ عَلَى قَوْمِهِ مِنَ الْمِحْرَابِ. So he emerged before his people from the temple, mihrab. Now mihrab, the place of worship of the Jews of that time, it may have been called mihrab, and mihrab that we say, mihrab is that niche in that place of worship in the masjid, which is right in the front part of the masjid, where the imam generally he gives out his sermons and offers his prayers in the mihrab. So mihrab, a place of war with shaitan. That is, you stand in worship against Iblis and you fight that Iblis. So mihrab, it's from harb. Harb means war, harb means battle, fight. So we have stood in worship before God, and then it was mentioned that the moment you have cleared your thoughts and put away everything from your mind, then you say Allahu Akbar. That is that height of khulus a person gets to, and that by fighting and in that mihrab, fighting Iblis, removing all the thoughts that are in my mind, and that is how a person gets to God, in that mihrab. Now, one of the other things that we learn here is that tasbih, and according to Fakhr Razi, it means prayers, like namaz and salat. So tasbih in this ayah, it means prayer. And in this ayah, namaz has been mentioned as tasbih. So messages that we get from this ayah is that in tabligh, in propagation, a muballigh, the propagator, him being from the same town, it is preferred. It is someone, for example, here from the city that I am living in, he performs the tabligh for the people of this town, because they understand their languages each other better, and they know what the needs and requirements are in the society. So they would prefer to have a mentor, a guide, which is from that very society. So here Allah says that in tabligh, the muballigh, the propagator, in him being from the same town, it is preferred that if it is from this town, he performs tabligh also in his own town. Rasulullah did the same. And also the ayah nafr that we have in Quran says, وَلَوْلَا نَفَرَ مِن كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِّنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٍ, that it is from every firqa, every tribe, every group of people, a few, they go to study and then they return to their places, to their hometowns, so that they can guide people, so that the tabligh can be done. So in tabligh, being from that same area, that is preferred. So the propagator, him being from that same town, it's preferred. فَخَرَجَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ. So here when Prophet Ibrahim, regarding him, Allah says, فَخَرَجَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ. That is, he emerged, he came out, and he went to his people, his nation. Ala qawmih is his people, his nation. So tabligh also is done by people from the same of the same nation. Now, one of the other things that we learn from this ayah is that men of God, they have a designated spot for their worship wherever they are. If it's a mosque, then he goes to that specific mosque all the time, he is there in worship. If it is his home, he has designated the place in his house for prayers. And it is mustahab to do that, that even in your homes you have to allocate a place exclusively for worship. Barakat are there. Your focusing will increase in that room where you have allocated for prayers. And the other benefit is that during the at the end of our life, if the person is ruh or he's having a painful death, for them it is said that take him to the place where he used to offer his prayers there. Do that, that way his soul will be eased and relaxed, and he will depart with tranquility. So, someone who invites people to worship, he should himself be bonded with worship. Like فَخَرَجَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ مِنَ الْمِحْرَابِ فَأَوْحَىٰ إِلَيْهِمْ. So Prophet Zakaria, he himself was occupied in that mihrab, in that place of worship, and then he invites people who are towards this worship. Not that he himself doesn't offer prayers and now he's inviting people towards prayers. That's going to backfire. Okay. Prophets, they are duty bound to invite people to worship. فَأَوْحَىٰ إِلَيْهِمْ أَنْ سَبِّحُوا. That is, the Prophet, he invites people towards submitting before Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Now the other message that we get here is that ibadat or worship is worthy and beautiful then when it is permanent. That is, you have to be worshipping all the time. Not that today, this Sunday, I'll do some worship and then give a break to myself for a few days, a few weeks, and then come back online. No. Worship has to be permanent all the time. In fact, it has to increase slowly by the age a person he is in. So slowly he increases and he stands in worship before God all the time and impermanently. So prophets, they are duty bound to invite people to worship. قَالُوا فَأَوْحَىٰ إِلَيْهِمْ أَنْ سَبِّحُوا. So they are duty bound to that. Now an old man blessed with a child from a barren woman is a further sign of the Almighty's glorification, that his might is never restricted to anything which he doesn't want to happen. If he wants things to be done by someone, he makes the arrangements and in a beautiful way. So there's nothing to worry. If the task belongs to God, مَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ يَنْمُو, whatever is for God, it continues, it provides benefit. So, prophets, they are all duty bound to invite people towards worship. أَوْحَىٰ إِلَيْهِمْ أَنْ سَبِّحُوا. And then ibadat, worship, is worthy and beautiful then when it is permanent. Bukratan wa ashiyya. Quran says, Bukratan also you say your prayers. And then ashiyya also you say your prayers. Bukratan you remember the Almighty. Ashiyya also you remember the Almighty. And the best time of worship and ibadat, it's bukratan wa ashiyya. Bukratan in the after Fajr and before sunrise, ashiyya towards the end of the day, or according to this definition, that it is from now the next ayah, Ya Yahya خذ الكتاب بقوة وآتيناه الحكم صبيا. Yahya, John. Allah says, Ya Yahya, hold on with power to the book. So, خذ الكتاب بقوة, hold it strong, don't let it go. And then says, وَآتَيْنَاهُ الْحُكْمَ صَبِيًّا, and we gave him the judgment, the wisdom, the power, the ability. All of that was given to him at that age, at that very young age. We gave him. Now, hukm also means over here judgment. Hukm can mean wisdom. Hukm can mean ilm. All these different applicables of hukm have been mentioned in riwayat, in tafasir. Wisdom also can be mentioned, judgment also can be mentioned. So whichever you like, or if you want to do a little bit of more study, there you can come to your conclusion what exactly it means. So all these different meanings of hukm have been mentioned, for wisdom, for power, for might, for rule, for hukumat, for wisdom, etc. وَحَنَانًا مِنْ لَدُنَّا وَزَكَاةً وَكَانَ تَقِيًّا. Says, Ya Yahya, hold on to the book with all your might and strength, and we've given you wisdom, we've given you ilm, we've given you wisdom and sustenance and everything. وَحَنَانًا مِنْ لَدُنَّا وَزَكَاةً وَكَانَ تَقِيًّا. And a compassion and party from us. Indeed, he was God-wary. Now, these are the attributes of Prophet Yahya that the Almighty Allah is mentioning. وَحَنَانًا مِنْ لَدُنَّا وَزَكَاةً وَكَانَ تَقِيًّا. وَكَانَ تَقِيًّا means that Yahya, he was very pious, very noble. كَانَ تَقِيًّا. Now again, things that we learn from this ayah is that hukm وَآتَيْنَاهُ الْحُكْمَ صَبِيًّا. Hukm, it was mentioned that it's either judgment, it's either might or ilm or wisdom. It could be any one of these or all of them, it doesn't matter. Now, there are three people from among the prophets who arrived at this rank of nubuwwat at a very young age. It's Sulaiman and Prophet Isa and Prophet Yahya. Prophet Isa, he was an infant and in the laps of the mother, and the mother, she points out at the baby when she was being accused, and the baby spoke, says, قَالَ إِنِّي عَبْدُ اللَّهِ آتَانِيَ الْكِتَابَ وَجَعَلَنِي نَبِيًّا, that he said that God, إِنِّي عَبْدُ اللَّهِ, I am the servant of Allah, آتَانِيَ الْكِتَابَ, to me a book has been given, وَجَعَلَنِي نَبِيًّا, and he has made me a nabi, a prophet, a messenger. So, Prophet Yahya alayhi salam, Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, he gave him nubuwwat at a very young age, and that Allah, when he wants something, he does it, he makes it happen. Now, throughout the life, Prophet Yahya salamullahi alayhi, he was a propagator of the Shariat of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. So it was the Tawrat that he was propagating. Tawrat was the book that he was performing tabligh on. That was his faith as well. And then when Hazrat Isa salamullah alayhi starts his mission, he is appointed as Rasul, and then this Injil has been revealed unto Prophet Isa. Yahya becomes the propagator of the Shariat of Prophet Isa alayhi salam. So for a time he was a propagator of and the murawwij of the deen of Prophet Musa alayhi salam based upon Tawrat, and then later he switched, and then when the Risalat of Prophet Isa alayhi salam was announced, he switched and he becomes a propagator, a muballigh of Prophet Isa alayhi salatu wassalam. Yeah. So the other things that we learn from this beautiful ayah is that, so we'll talk a little bit about Hazrat Yahya and Zakaria and also Prophet Isa alayhi salam. Nabuwwat, the book that was, Prophet Yahya, he didn't have any specific book. Over here in this ayah that was given, that was mentioned, that were خُذِ الْكِتَابَ بِقُوَّةٍ, hold on to the book with all your might. It is not a different shariat that was given to Prophet Yahya alayhi salam. In fact, it is that sharia that he was preaching from Prophet Musa, from Prophet Ibrahim Musa alayhi salam, from the Tawrat, that was being propagated. Now the other beautiful thing that we have for Prophet Yahya alayhi salam, that before the Almighty God, when Hazrat Yahya, he ascends to a rank, he comes to a rank where Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says, Salamun alayh, that salam be upon him, that is Yahya. Yawma walid, the day he was born. Wa yawma yamut, the day he dies. Wa yawma yub'asu hayya, and the day he will be raised and resurrected. Now, Prophet Yahya alayhi salam, in age, he is almost the same age as Hazrat Isa alayhi salam. Both prophets, both ma'soom, both of them living at the same time, and both of them, they are relatives as well. That is Hazrat Maryam salamullah alayha and Prophet Yahya, any mother of Hazrat Maryam and mother of Hazrat Yahya, they are sisters. So they are sisters. So they are first cousins as well. Age also has been similar. For the age, it is said that it's here Prophet Yahya was either 6 months older than Hazrat Isa or 3 years. So between 6 months and 3 years, that is the age difference between the two prophets. Prophet Isa is younger. Both of them have been very good friends with each other. Very strongly bonded, and both of them, they did not get married. Now why they did not get married, now that is another issue. One of the reasons that is mentioned is that they had to travel because of tabligh a lot, and it wasn't easy for them to carry women and children with them. So for that reason, Hazrat Yahya and Prophet Isa alayhim salam, both of them were singles. Now this doesn't mean that everyone goes and says that we also want to remain single, because Isa and Yahya, they were also singles. Now if that's the case, then Imam al-Asr also, he also may be single, maybe, we don't know. But then we have to follow the sunnah and the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, where he says, An-nikahu sunnati, it is my sunnah, my way of life, and you have to abide by the way of life of Rasulullah. In addition to that, in the propagation and tabligh that was being performed by both of these prophets, Yahya and Isa alayhim salam, so they couldn't settle down in one place. Always on the go, traveling from one part of to the other, educating and teaching people. Both of them were very pious, very God-wary, and also not marrying was one of those issues that they wanted to be totally secluded and away from any kind of an attachment, any kind of a towards this world, towards this dunya. Birth of both of them also has been miraculous. Their Prophet Isa alayhi salam is born without a father. Prophet Yahya also is born miraculously from a father such old and a mother that was barren. So birth-wise, and then work-wise, and then the place where they were serving, all of that has been common between the two prophets. And then the other thing that we see over here between the two prophets, they were so close to each other, like two brothers in Irfan, two brothers very close to one another. Prophet Yahya salamullah alayh, when he was killed, and then here Prophet Isa, he is all alone, he misses him, comes by the grave of Hazrat Yahya salamullah alayh, and says to Allah that Allah raise him, resurrect him, I'm tired, I can't live all alone, I need some kind of a companionship, someone who I can confide and I can talk to. I haven't got anyone. Bring him back, make him alive. Comes by the grave, Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, and then Wahi is revealed that no, Wahi was revealed. Prophet Isa says, God, bring him back to life, make him alive. Hazrat Yahya was brought back to life. Here, the moment he sees Hazrat Isa, says that, what happened? Why did you bring me back to life? Hazrat Isa says that, Uridu an tu'bisni kama kuntu fid dunya. Just want to be with you, want to spend time with you just like we used to do in dunya. Hazrat Yahya in reply says that, but I don't want to come back to this dunya. I haven't got the pains of death, they haven't ended yet, and I have no more strength to return back to dunya and then to see the pains of death once again. Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, when he ascends to the skies on the eve of Mi'raj, he was shown around by Jibreel alayhi salam. He comes to the second sky. On the second sky, he sees that there are two men like twins, very much resembling each other. He says, who are they? Rasulullah inquires, and then Jibreel, who is with him, he says that these two twin brothers, they are Isa and Yahya salamullahi alayhi. So that is the rank that Allah has given to Hazrat Yahya and also Hazrat Zakaria. So there is a lot of shabahat and a lot of commonality between the two of them. At a very young age, the nubuwwat was given to them. When Hazrat Zakaria was killed, Hazrat Yahya was just a few years old, a young child. So nubuwwat was given to him at that very young age. Just like Imam al-Asr alayhi salatu wasalam, he was just 5 when his father passed away. Imamat was given to him at that age. So in these fields that we have faith in, being blessed with nubuwwat or imamat at whatever age, that is upon Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. It doesn't matter if the Prophet is an infant, if he's a child, and Allah has appointed him the risalat, or even if he is a 5-year-old child like Imam Mahdi alayhi salatu wassalam in the funeral of his father Askari salamullahi alayhi. So this was a little bit about Hazrat Zakaria and Yahya. So ayah says here, Ya Yahya, O Yahya, khuzil kitaba biquwwatin, hold on to the book with all might, with all strength. Now Hazrat Zakaria was killed. Hazrat Yahya is young, a very young child, and then nubuwwat is given to him. During the time of Hazrat Yahya salamullahi alayhi, the king at that time is Herodes or Hardush, and he dies. His brother Behnam has a wife. Behnam dies. Herdus, he becomes the ruler and the emperor. Behnam, the brother who passed away, his wife is Kahfibus. Now this Herdus, he marries his sister-in-law, his brother's widowed wife. Now that brother, he had a beautiful daughter. Now this uncle, that is Behnam, he falls in love with his own niece. So after his brother, he marries brother's wife, and then falls in love with his brother's daughter, that is his wife's daughter as well, and wants to marry. So the first one to object when the message comes to Hazrat Yahya salamullah alayhi, he objects and he says that this is haram according to Tawrat and this is not allowed and you shouldn't be doing it. Now when this message, this news spreads in that town that Yahya alayhi salam is forbidding them to get married, that was a shame for them, that being the first person and then want to do something like that, and then the religion, the deen doesn't allow, and he who is not allowing him is Yahya alayhi salam. So that was, he was getting on his nerves. Now the niece, the brother's daughter and the wife's daughter, she also was in love with this, with her uncle Herodes, and but Yahya alayhi salam is forbidding them. She puts a condition that I'll marry you, and the mahr that I want is the head of Yahya. And it so happens that somehow they got married, and on that condition, with that mahr that she had, and then Prophet Yahya alayhi salam was brought into the palace, and then was beheaded in the presence of all of these mal'oons, and his head was placed in that tasht, in that tray. And then they conducted with the marriage ceremony, and when he was about to, the marriage ceremony was ending or being held, Hazrat Yahya's head that is placed in that tray spoke, Ya hadha ittaqillah la yahillu laka hadhihi. O you, O he, beware of God, be God-wary. This what you are doing is not halal upon you. Even in the after his shahadat, he supported his move, his claim and his hard work that this haram should not take place. Now one of the other things that we see different totally between Prophet Isa and Hazrat Yahya is that Hazrat Isa is jolly. Jolly meaning that very optimistic, looks at the things in a very positive way. Hazrat Yahya, he used to cry a lot, so much so that his mother, she had put cotton pods on his cheeks. As a result of that excessive crying and tears falling on his cheeks, his flesh on his cheeks, that was all wounded. So the more he cried, the more that wound, it used to get hurt. So for him not to be hurt, she used to put these cotton pods on his face, on his cheeks. And Hazrat Zakaria also was very cautious that when he used to speak, he never spoke about the Day of Judgment, Qiyamah, etc. in the presence of Yahya alayhi salam, because if he did speak, he used to cry for a few days. And on one occasion when he was speaking about the Day of Judgment, the horror of the Day of Judgment in the masjid, Hazrat Zakaria was, first of all, he used to be cautious whether Yahya is present in that meeting or not. He sees that Yahya is not present, but Yahya alayhi salam was sitting behind one of those pillars, and which was blocking the view, and he couldn't see that Yahya is sitting behind that pillar. And when he started speaking about the Day of Judgment, he burst into a cry and tears, so much like someone who has who's been shattered by malperformance of his actions. He says just like that he left the place, and for so many days he was out of the city, worried and crying and weeping. So that was Hazrat Yahya a little bit. So Hazrat Isa, very optimistic, looks at things positively and is always jolly. Hazrat Yahya, always worried, always due to the fear of the Almighty, etc. He was always in tears. One day Hazrat Yahya says to Prophet Isa that I don't know, are you not worried about the Day of Judgment, the horror of the Day of Judgment, the wrath of the Almighty God, that you are always jolly and happy and gleeful? In reply, Prophet Isa says that, are you not faithful to the mercy of Allah, to His optimism, to His in His hope, that how forgiving, merciful He is? So both are prophets, both are masoom, both living at the same time, and both were given nubuwwat at that age. So everything is there, but over here the difference of opinion the two have. So both of them have this debate, that Prophet Isa saying that and Hazrat Yahya saying the other. They say, okay, let's ask Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala to judge between us, that which one of us is right. Whether you, who is always giggling and laughing and happy and in a good mood and being optimistic in God, or me, who was always crying and depressed and sad due to the fear of God. Wahi is revealed and then says that both of you are right, both of you are ma'soom, but my vote, that is Allah's vote, is with Prophet Isa alayhi salam. He says that my vote is with Isa, to get people towards me, to get people corrected. That hope is required, that optimism is required. With that optimism, you can bring people to me easily, quicker, rather than always talking about the horror and the punishments and the wrath, etc. That's going to put off people and in fact drive them away from God. So these are the two differences of opinions between Yahya and Isa alayhi salam. Otherwise both of them were almost the same. But Prophet Isa alayhi salam is among the Ulul Azm prophets. So when the Nubuwwat was given to Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, Prophet Yahya also started propagating the teachings of Prophet Isa. Prior to that, it was the teachings of Prophet Musa salamullah alayhi that were propagated by Hazrat Yahya salamullahi alayhi. وسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.